Well, it's not often here on Classic 107 that we get a chance to talk with a Grammy Award-winning artist, and yet here we find ourselves with soprano Karen Slack, who, along with pianist Michelle Can, captured the Grammy Award this past year for their record Beyond the Years, the unpublished songs of Florence Price. Florence is a composer that we've shared many times on the Classic 107 airwaves, but we have never really gotten a chance to dive deep into Price's works until we get the chance to speak with a now a bona fide expert. Thanks for taking the time, Karen.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
First of all, tell me a little bit about the process for... You know what, I'm gonna go even further back to say, what was your first introduction to Florence Price?
My first introduction to Florence Price is through her spiritual arrangements. You know, because so much of her music was unpublished, we never had access to that. So anything that was in the African American anthology, which is everyone knows the Big Gray anthology with all of the Black composers' music that have been out for many, many years now, and also her arrangements of some of Langston Hughes's poems, you know, My Dream and what is this? There's a few others, of course, they escape my brain now. But yeah, so only a few of her songs we've had access to, but most of her spiritual arrangements, you know, she was a prolific pianist, organist, of course. And so a lot of her music is the piano parts are very, very grand. So.
For those people who maybe haven't had the chance to interact with her music in a very deep sort of way, maybe a passing sort of first couple of symphonies, maybe a movement or two from those which were recorded not that long ago as well. How would you describe her musical language?
Romantic, lush, dramatic, music that goes straight to the soul. If you think of some of her her contemporaries, Ravel, Debussy, and we never think about American composers, specifically Black composers, in the way we think of Western European composers. But I will say her competition, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, you know, those are very lush folk as composers who wrote, you know, extraordinary music that just was much more accessible maybe than some of the other European composers.
Sure. So then we get to, you mentioned these many unpublished pieces of Florence Price's that some have been found over the years. I think there was one story of there was a random house on the outskirts of Chicago where somebody dug up some floorboards or something and found all of these Florence Price scores. Then there's these unpublished songs that you and Michelle Can recorded. Maybe you can talk us a little bit about how you came to curate those songs and some of the research or preparation that you had to do in order to record them and share them with the world.
Absolutely. So I'll just go way back. In maybe about 2020, my dear friends Steve Spinelli and Tamara Acosta, who are my producing partners for their organization, is One Composer. And they brought Michelle Can and I together to do some recordings during the pandemic. So we recorded, I think, Price and Bonds at Curtis, which we're both alumni from Curtis. So I had never worked with Michelle before, but they knew that she and I would make a good pairing. And from that recording, it was incredible, like our chemistry. We basically did like one takes of everything.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was a natural fit. But if not been for Steve and Tamara bringing us together, I'm not sure Beyond the Years would have even been born. But from that recording session, we decided that we wanted to do a fuller length project. And one composer approached me. They said, well, we want to give you the opportunity to make a recording, a debut solo album. Wow. Anything you want to do, it doesn't matter. And I said I wanted to do all Florence Price, because many of us do know Margaret Bonds' music. Her music is much more available than Miss Price's music. But from my research of the things that I was able to get, I said, I know that there's much, much more Florence Price. And so they went down to the library in Fayetteville, because where her papers are at the University of Arkansas, and scanned a ton of scores that they then emailed me. They put them in a folder, and actually I was here in Banff. That might have been 2 summers ago, as I was getting the manuscripts. I was sitting at the piano and then trying to read through the manuscripts and all things, trying to choose the right songs for the album. And I have to say, honestly, I chose through the text first, through the poetry. She was such a stalwart on picking the right poetry. The poems that she chose were just, even for the album, phenomenal. And so I sort of let the poems lead me to the songs that I chose. And we chose 20. We recorded 22 or 23. I think 19 made it on the album.
Yes.
So, but I did make a decision to not do any spirituals, because I wanted all art songs on there to show that Miss Price was a prolific art song composer in the same manner that Schubert and Schumann and Brahms and all of these amazing European composers that we know as great, song writers. Miss Price rivals all of them.
It strikes me that the choice to not use spirituals and to just focus on art song is a way in which to situate Florence Price's music alongside of Schubert and all these other amazing art song composers, and maybe does not then limit Florence Price to being, we know that she writes great spirituals, this genre that is very indicative of the Black community. Yes. That was then I take it the conscious choice to then say, yeah, she stands alongside everybody else and is not just in this spiritual sort of realm.
It was very intentional.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So when we perform the album, parts of the album in live performance, it is paired with Ravel and Schubert. So the first half is Ravel, Schubert, and the second half is all Miss Price.
Wow, a great way to, again, very easily able to compare Price with her contemporaries.
Absolutely.
To stretch out your singing career a little bit, you have performed on however many of the world's greatest stages in all manner of roles, art song, opera, concert work, all of it. How does performing this kind of music by Florence Price compare with sharing repertoire that more people perhaps are familiar with, Puccini and the like?
Oh, well, I love the reaction from the audience, because first of all, no one knows it.
Yeah.
No one knows this repertoire yet. So it's all still very magical to everyone. And because the accompaniment is so rich, it riles everybody up and gets people excited. So there's a lot more applauding in Miss Price's, sets than per se the structure of how we normally do art song, where you wait till the end of the set to applaud. And so I love that part. But for me, I find it freeing in the recital concert space in a very different way than opera is freeing. Opera is through, freeing through the expression of the character, right? Where recital, every song is its own opera, its own character. I love the idea that I get to wear what I want to wear. I get to sing what I want to sing. It is really so personal in a very different way than opera is, and magical in all their ways. But this is the reason why I also love new work, new pieces bringing in, because you can really put your signature and your stamp as an artist. We work decades to learn how to become a great artist and to be able to tap into that thing of our heart and pour it out, right? Yeah. But rarely do we ever get the opportunity, or that we are pushed to constantly deliver that. Right? You learn how to do it, and then you have to fight for work and opportunity to be able to do it, right?
Right.
And
No, I was going to say, it strikes me as you're talking that this is like an expression, as opposed to being an opera, as an expression of character. This repertoire is an expression of you, and that's what helps to rise above that competition.
Absolutely. And, of course, Miss Price's music, because it is so rooted in, the Black idiom, in the language that she uses, and the musical language that she uses. You know, it's very soulful, you know, very connected to, again, Black culture. It makes it very easy for me. I understand her language, you know, in a way, but I don't think that anyone else can, because again, this music is for everyone, you know, and also it is very freeing. Again, the same way that a big Tchaikovsky song is just very free, and it allows you to be at your full expression in the way Puccini is, and, you know, all these things very rooted in realism.
Clearly, the Recording Academy agrees with this assessment of your connection. Now that you've received a Grammy Award for your efforts, what was that moment like when your names were announced? I think were you at the ceremony as well? What was that moment like for you to be in Los Angeles and hear your name called?
Oh my gosh. Well, I still can't believe it. I just heard Beyond. I didn't even hear the whole rest of the, you know, the title. I leap up out of the chair, and I've got this big, gorgeous gown on, you know, and I felt like I was 10,000, you know, feet above ground. It was extraordinary. And I'm running across the stage, and of course I'm watching the playback after. And I'm like, why am I running? Like, where are you? Where are you going? You know, but again, I'm up here. I'm in the sky, like, and I just, you know, I had just lost my father right before Christmas, and so many of these amazing things are happening, like, after all of that, and at the very same time, and thinking about Miss Price and how she was kept out for decades, as if she was not there writing incredible music, but because of, you know, racism and sexism and all the things, which is the reason why her music was not published, you know, to think that this woman should have won multiple Grammys already. You know, Philadelphia Orchestra won a Grammy for one of her symphonies, or maybe 3 years ago. Yes. You know, and then we get to represent vocal music. We get to represent our art form, and that at that level with Miss Price. We are the first trio of Black women to win that award. That's extraordinary.
Absolutely. There's that reaction from the Recording Academy, which is like very tangible. There's a trophy that gets to be put on your shelf, of course. But then there's also the reactions I would imagine you would also get from your more immediate community, your supporters, your friends, your family. You mentioned your father who passed away last year. What was their reaction to hearing this music?
Oh, they loved it. When the album came out, you know, people were like, "I think you got a winner," and I never intended to win a Grammy. That was not my intent. My intention was just to, you know, uplift Miss Price. But when it was released, people said, "Karen, this project is unbelievably beautiful and timely and relevant and all the things." And in my community that is not, you know, that I grew up in, it's not classical music. They think of the Grammy, like some people didn't even realize that you can win a Grammy in classical music. Right. Because again, we only know the Grammys as like pop music, country, you know, but there are hundreds of Grammys given out, spoken word, jazz, you know, all the things. So people were like, "Karen, my God, you won a Grammy." Like they're thinking like Beyonce, Stevie Wonder, you know, and all these, you know, mainstream groups, but it's true, like you are right there with them. And so, you know, of course my community has immense pride for me, but also the community of voice and opera and classical music have been extraordinary, you know, just even when we got nominated to, you know, when the album came out, and then when we got nominated up until the win, you know, very, very supportive, because again, it was a timely, relevant project that centered glorious music and great artistry between Michelle and I.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's it. The music of Florence Price is, of course, the main component of this album, Beyond the Years. But you touched on also the poetry and how it resonated with your community, how timely they said it was. What do you think it is about the words of the 19 songs that are on Beyond the Years that can speak truth to our existence, into our social reality in 2025?
It's interesting. Well, that's partly why. Well, okay, so it's two parts to that. A lot of the poetry that was chosen of the time was not actually they were not able to write about social issues, right? Sure. So unless it's a Langston Hughes poem or a Paul Laurence Dunbar poem, which I think one of the I think one of the poems that of the ships that pass at night is Florence. So that's partly why I love to produce my own new music now, because I really believe that composers now have no boundaries in the manner that the composers of a different time were not really as able to write about social movements. So beyond the years, the poems that I chose were more about nature and love, and she loved to talk about like animals, and really those were the poems that she chose that were just rich and very beautiful. This one of my favorites is "Bright Be the Place." Bright be the place of thy soul, no lovelier spirit than thine, ere burst from its mortal control, in the arms of the blessed to shine. Like there's just such this beautiful text paint. It was easy to paint to this text, and so a lot of her text that she chose was very visual, which makes it easier to interpret.
Right.
As the singer, you don't have to. Like, what does this word mean? You have to go and dig into some ancient dictionary to find. There's that, and so. Today's composers, and again, and also as artists, we are able to tap into the things that are going on socially. We are able to express that and speak to that in a manner that a different generation may have been penalized for that.
Sure. It's really interesting to hear you talk about the sort of natural qualities of the songs that are on beyond the years. And of course, you spend a lot of time in some very naturally beautiful places. You're performing right now, for instance, looking forward to a concert up at Tanglewood in New England, and to say nothing of the environments that surround us right here at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. How does your experience here in Canada in the Rocky Mountains, how do you think that experience has maybe shifted or influenced the pieces and the way in which you portray nature in your singing?
Well, that's a beautiful question, because I don't think I've ever spent this amount of time in such a gorgeous place. This will be my fourth summer in person at Banff. I think it's my third or fourth summer. And I mean, you can see deer and elk and like those little squirrels that like run past your feet, and bears and all. I mean, you are really a guest in this nature space, right? In the beauty of the majesty, I say, of God that He created. This incredible environment that we are just such a small, tiny, tiny part that we get to. Banff allows us to be a part of what is much bigger than we are, right? And I slow down when I'm in Banff, and I get to work on other things, and I get to focus on other stuff. Like I have my own studio that I'm able to like practice in and think in a way that I'm not able to do that at home. And, I guess when I was here in Banff and I was getting my manuscripts for Beyond the Years, like I really, again, I had the time and the space to think about what pieces would work, what pieces didn't work, how I wanted to curate the album. So, looking out on those gorgeous Canadian Rockies, I mean, that's inspirational in itself. So
as you're going through those manuscripts here at the Banff Centre, and you're contemplating this project, maybe advocacy feels like maybe a little bit of the wrong word, but you are putting forward Florence Price to say, look, this is an incredible vocal music composer, and not just the spirituals, but the art songs as well. Is looking at Florence Price's music and recording it and being so intentional with crafting this album, was there ever a weight of responsibility that you feel towards this music, and maybe even more broadly to showing this element of the culture that also factors into this recording here?
Every time, all the time. And the weight, not in a bad way, but a responsibility, absolutely. Because I have to take the position that I have been gifted and blessed to be able to acquire, to uplift, right? I can go into my little bubble and take all of the things and all of the great, amazing places that I have been able to perform and not make space for voices like Miss Price, voices like, Black Magnificent Seven with African Queens, or any other stories and things that I'm doing. I could do that. I could just do straight traditional career, but that's not who I am. And once I figured out who I was as an artist, and once I started to, the advocacy, people want to call it activism, advocacy, whatever the terms that they would like to use. For me, it's just like using the opportunity that I have to share, to make the space for as many people as possible. Because the music is not for me to like, oh, I have this album. This is the reason why we published. One composer then went and published the Beyond the Years album. So the music is available to everyone now. So that's the idea. We recorded it, and before it was public domain. And then once the songs became available, they came out of the exclusivity. We had them. We had them recorded, and also they were engraved.
Right, something that is very easily then referenced for the next artists that want to continue that work of showcasing Florence Price's vocal works.
Absolutely.
As you contemplate your next projects, without giving too much away, because we might be a little bit surprised, what sorts of projects maybe are you able to take on now that you have gone through this journey of Beyond the Years? What has this creative process maybe added to your artistry that you can say, okay, now I can go out and I can share this in my responsibility and in my place that you feel here in the wider sort of arts or vocal music world?
I have to say, and this is not an ego thing, I have put forth several projects. This Beyond the Years, of the I Sing Songs on Love and Justice is another recital evening that I produced, and African Queens, which is the 7 composer pieces that uplifts 7 African queens during history that did extraordinary things. So now I have these sets of projects that really centers me as a curator to watch out for. And so I have presenters and producers who are like, anything Karen wants to do, we want to be a part of it. And that is something that I never experienced as just a singular opera singer.
Right.
But it is something that I have birthed, that I have acquired through putting out art that didn't center me, but centered other people and their stories. And so I am the woman of many ideas. I just always have to center myself, be more focused on the idea, because again, when I curate, I don't curate for myself. I curate for my audience. I curate for whatever is going on in the world, or what I feel like should be in the spaces.
Right.
These pieces that are things that I feel like, why hasn't someone else done this already? And maybe they have, but we don't know about it.
Sure.
So my next set of projects, my next big project we're going to record African Queens, so that's the next recording, and
Amazing.
That's fine. Yeah. But my next one will be not as grand as I think in the scope of Queens or in the scope of Beyond the Years, but it will be more about the human experience, which is grand in its own self, and as I am maturing, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I'll be 50 years old in September. I have been singing classical music since I was a teenager, since I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. I have singularly been doing this for pretty much my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And I've always strived, and the career is this. People think, oh, it's just, is this a sin? No, there's a this, and then a plummet,
Sure.
and then it's a fight and a crawl back, midway, and then there's another thing, and the whole thing. My story is very, very vast and quite inspirational. But as I am going into the other side of my life and all these things that I am growing and doing and sharing, it is all in inspiration of the young generation coming behind me saying, you don't have to do the things that they tell you. I always feel like you have to master, quote unquote, the things that they tell you to do in order to do the things that you want to do.
Right.
Right?
Got to learn all the rules in order to break them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Break them and then build them for what you want. And then when I mentor singers, I say, this is this is your art form. This is your, in the future, the people that are making decisions now will not be there. You will be there, you know? So
That's
you
right.
have to start to think about those things much earlier than you do. And so now, and I take those things that I pour into other people, and I take them for myself, and I really work through them, and I just go, you know, what is it that I want? Breaking the rules, if you want to say that, or going against the grain or against what the industry is saying is the direction that we should go.
Right.
I don't stand 10 toes down and no, I don't feel that way. So I'm going to go over here and curate and create the thing that I feel like is the moment, is the culture, creating whatever that culture is, you know. And I know that young artists and young people look at me and look at my career, and they look to me, and, you know, many of them know me, the younger generation, through my social media and through the things that I did during pandemic and everything. And they go, well, wow, they're inspired by those things, you know. So I have a responsibility to continue to trust myself and my instinct in the way and the manner that I make my art.
Wow. Amazing to hear about that process behind the creation of Beyond the Years, but also everything else that is coming up for you in your career. And we're so excited to see what comes next here on Classic 107. Let us offer a belated congratulations on your award as well. You can listen to it on our website this morning. We will tag it classic107.com and the Classic 107 app. This has been an absolute delight, Karen Slack. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nolan. Thank you. It's a wonderful, and go download the album.